Those type of things, in my opinion, make the game more similar to, from a strategy perspective, similar to like chess. You can't just utilize brute force, strength, speed to beat everybody. There's angles, things that you can use. That's why you see, you talk about parent age or even older. You see some of these people, somebody that's 50 years old is beating someone that's 20 years old.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, well, that person's faster. I don't understand. Like, the angles of the game make it really challenging. There's a lot. You can open it up. There's a lot of complexities.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of That Can't Be Right. I am your host, Ryan Rogan. As always, follow along at TCBR Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're not driving right now, leave a 5-star review. If you are working out, if you're cleaning, stop, open social media, follow along, leave a review. Do it now before you forget. Today, we're talking about my new obsession with Brandon Nsekpong. Brandon is a husband, dad, and pickleball pro. Brandon, welcome to That Can't Be Right.
I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me. And, I want to try to figure out what can be right after listening to this podcast. So
there you go. You get it. You see the vision. Y'all, if you're my friend, you've already gotten a lot of messages about this. Pickleball, it's a new sport. Maybe you've seen professional athletes buying teams. You've been frustrated that they're taking over tennis courts in your neighborhood. You can hear them. You've been invited to play, whatever. I got into the hype. I love it. And I need to figure out why that is. This is a cultural oddity that has come up. So first things first, Brandon, what is pickleball?
Yeah, pickleball. You can hear people describe it in a bunch of different ways. Typically, you hear somebody say it's a smaller version of tennis, like a bigger version of ping pong. So if you ping pong or table tennis. So if you think about like standing on top of a ping pong table, that's kind of what you're doing outside on the court. It has completely picked up in the last 4 or 5 years as being like great sport to get out there and play. If you're playing casually, it's not too taxing on like joints and all of that. You're getting to move around. And so it's really enticing for people to play a lot. And that's why you see all these courts popping up everywhere. For the people that are questioning, why are they taking over my tennis court? Typically because they can put 4 pickleball courts on that one tennis court. 2 or 3 is probably the best, but it's a better use of space for them. Think about 16 people playing pickleball at once versus 2 people playing tennis for 30 minutes. Facilities, companies are getting a better ROI on it, and so they're jumping all in. The hype is real. It isn't just a fad. Everyone I know that has played loves pickleball, or at least likes it. I haven't met anyone that has played and said they hate it, but I have met people that have been on the sidelines and said, it's too noisy, or I don't like, that kind of thing. So I'd say just try it.
All of the above are true. I love the ROI discussion, very business oriented. Appreciate that. It's a combination of tennis and table tennis, which historically I am terrible at. So I was very surprised when I was able to go in and compete with I call them parent age people that I play with at the local community center. And we'll talk about like the demographics of pickleball in a second. But could you speak a little bit more to like how you play? I know I haven't played singles, but you can play singles, you can play doubles. What are the mechanics?
Yeah, for the most part, the swings are pretty identical to what you would do in tennis. The closer you get to the net, you're using a lot of like ping pong, shorter strokes. But yeah, you're going to have, you could play singles where you'd be going to 11, typically is the scoring, and you'd play 2 out of 3 to 11. And doubles is where the scoring gets a little bit tricky because both sides are going to serve once. Both sides are actually going to serve twice. So you have 2 people on each side before it goes to the other side. And you can only get points on your serve. One of the rare things with this game, too, is the way you start. The score would be 0-0-2, as in 0-0 start at the beginning. So one team would get the first serve. And then after that, if they don't get the point, it would go over to the other side. And then they would start with 2 serves. And so the scoring is always going to have 3 numbers in doubles. So it would be your score, your opponent's score, and then the number of server. I'm the first server, it'd be 0-0-1. If we score, it'd be 1-0-1. So that is probably the hardest part about pickleball. Everything else is pretty easy. The other thing is there's a neutralizing zone, which we call the kitchen area at the right by the net. You can't hit the ball out of the kitchen while you're standing in there if it doesn't bounce. So that's one that takes a lot of getting used to. You've got to feel it out the right way. Typically in tennis, you could hit a ball and run all the way up and crush it at the net if you want to and like pound your fist. You feel really good about it. In pickleball, you got to be careful because if you're hitting it out the air, you can't have your momentum carry you into that kitchen area and that zone. And those type of things, in my opinion, make the game more similar to, from a strategy perspective, similar to like chess, because you can't just utilize like brute force, strength, speed to beat everybody. There's angles, things that you can use. That's why you see, you talk about parent age or even older. You see some of these people, somebody that's 50 years old is beating someone that's 20 years old.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, well, that person's faster. I don't understand. Like the angles of the game make it really challenging. There's a lot. You can open it up. There's a lot of complexities.
I'm going to save that because I want to compare it to other experiences playing sports. But yes, it can be very humbling to be like, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm still pretty limber. I do the best I can. My knees structurally not sound, but I can move. And to get on the court and someone like flick their wrist, I'm thinking the ball's going one way, it's going the other. I'm running into a wall like a Scooby-Doo character. It's a really fun experience. So how did you come to pickleball?
I used to play table tennis at a very young age. So this is around like 7, 8, 9 years old. My dad, he is from Nigeria, so he came over here. He played a lot of ping pong in his early years, and so he was training me to be the best table tennis player in the world. And so I was doing that daily. At one point, I did actually reach the top junior in the United States. It was like at 8, 9 years old. So it's like a cool newspaper clipping to keep. So I did that. End up realizing, and my dad realized that there's not a lot of money in table tennis. Even if you're number one in the world, congrats, $90K a year. You still have to have 3 jobs. So we kind of transitioned to tennis, and I started doing that. I played a lot of tennis in my early teen years. And for me, just wasn't necessarily fulfilled playing it because it became like a job. So even though I was getting a lot of wins and medals and traveling, felt like a job for me. And then from my dad's perspective, when you're in junior tennis, you almost have to pull your kids out of school if you want to like take it serious. My dad was pretty big. He's a school teacher, taught math and science. So you can imagine his take on that is like education is everything. And I don't want to take my kid away from school when, we would travel to a tournament. And when I started, it would be you play on Friday. So you miss Friday school. And if you win, if you're in the championship for the tournament, you play Sunday, which is fine. It kept growing and venues want to make more money and junior tennis becomes this thing. Now we talk ROI again. And so they're dragging these tournaments on saying, all right, you start on Friday and we're going to have the championship on Tuesday. And so now all of a sudden you're like Thursday through Tuesday. And that's the point where my dad was kind of like, it's not worth it to like keep pushing him in this, knowing that he's missing more and more school, can't miss a certain amount of days. And so I was pretty happy because again, I didn't want to play anymore.
Yep.
So ended up pivoting to basketball for majority of my life, like 10 plus years of basketball. And one day I'm at a Lifetime Fitness and I look on the other side of the gym and they're playing pickleball. And I'm like, what is this? Immediately thinking it's probably something that I could be good at because of like hand speed and tennis and ping pong. Eventually, after seeing it a few times, I played this guy he's literally probably in his 60s. And we played singles one-on-one. And I'm just kind of, playing around with him. But I just noticed that he was winning.
Yeah. Eventually, he calls the score and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
After I'm down a few points, I'm like, oh, I do. So could I do this? He's like, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, all right, I'm filling the game out. After 2 or 3 games, I'm like, now that I get it, like, I'm not going to lose to this guy. Then I proceed to lose 2, 3 more times. From there, I played casually for a couple years before deciding that I wanted to turn pro.
How does getting beat by an older person in pickleball compare to getting maybe beat by like an older person in basketball? It's different, right? Because you get like those old, middle-aged guys who've packed on a few pounds from life. They
Mm-hmm.
back you down in the post, like that's their thing, or they throw a hook or whatever. Like they outmuscle you or do something. And then in pickleball, they're kind of like outmaneuvering you. Like how's that experience compare?
Let's say you're playing horse with somebody, and so horse is like it's a game you play in basketball where you're going to shoot at least 5 shots. If you make a shot, the other person has to make it, and they can shoot from anywhere. I would compare it more to that, because in actual basketball, when you're playing somebody that's like not as in shape, a little bit older or whatever, like you could still on offense like run around them, cross them over until to where they're like, all right, I can't really do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
With the kitchen line being a neutralizer, it reminds me more of like horse, because horse is more of a strategy game. You got those people that you'll play in horse that, I've done it, that are, 50, 60 plus, that they've hit one particular shot their entire life. And it's such a quirky, weird shot, but they will shoot that all day. And all of a sudden you're like, all right, I can dunk, I can do these crazy layups, I can shoot from half court, but I can't make them all the time like this guy that makes this little 15-foot left hand underhand shot. It's that feeling of like, dude, I can't. And so that gives that strategy feeling of, all right, how do I like beat this guy methodically, right? I can't just use all my athleticism. How do I make this shot and then add it to that shot and then pull him back here? You have to do that in pickleball a lot. This guy was moving me around strategically.
You played casually for a few years before making the decision to go pro. What was like the thinking, I can do this? What was the process to say, okay, I'm doing this. Here's what I have to sign up for or commit to?
Well, there's a whole deeper discussion about how I was a little bit nervous to jump in to a fully competitive sport, like to really like turn it on, because I, felt scarred a little bit from like childhood of like always having to perform and at the highest level and compete. And so I wanted something relaxing where I could go out and play and have a good time and be social. And so that's what I was doing for a couple years. The change was I started seeing friends that I played with go play in pro tournaments. And they were traveling, they were having a good time, and they were playing well. Over time for me, I just started looking at them saying, well, if they can do it, like, why can't I, make my way towards the pro ranks? And I realized that there's a lot of work that it takes to get to that point. It wasn't as easy as I was thinking at first. Like, oh, you just start playing a pro tournament and you win, and then that's it. There was a lot of like, weightlifting and cardio work I had to put in and training every single morning. And so once I started doing that for, 10 months, I actually started enjoying the process. Like I just loved getting better every single day and then performing in pro tournaments. So that was really cool. My friends loved it. I got sponsored by this company called Pro XR when I initially turned pro. A lot of people rooting for me. So it was cool, right? And if you ask me as a kid, I wasn't writing on my paper in second grade that I want to be a pro pickleball player. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I did say I wanted to be pro something. Like NBA was on my mind. So I'm happy and I'm fortunate to be in this position I am now.
You mentioned you enjoy the process. I think that's also something that has been fun for me. Like in doing pickleball, I also picked up boxing last year. Sorry to make it about me briefly. The point is, it's fun to learn a new skill. It's fun to learn how to get better at something, learning all the tips and tricks. And as you were mentioning earlier, like the chess, like how to maneuver, how to place people, play shots, whatever. That's really cool. But for you, you mentioned you're enjoying the process of like the strength training, the cardio, in addition to the pickleball. What do you think is different, or what do you think has changed that's allowed you to avoid some of the burnout you experienced when you were playing table tennis or even tennis when you were younger?
I think overall the sport is more fun than those two. So if we just compare, like when you're playing table tennis, let's say the demographic and the type of people that you're playing, like you're going into this facility, it's not really the best lighting every single time. They're in random places. Like you go into a strip mall, you go, down and you make a left and like, oh, there's like 15 tables here. Or it's in the rec center, there's 4 tables, but then there's a basketball. Even that environment there for table tennis is kind of like, it doesn't really look cool. Tennis is like dog eat dog world. Like it is so cruel and grueling. And you're going out there and you're playing somebody and you have to almost hate that person if you want to perform well, because that person is out to get you on every single call and they're trying to win because it matters. I didn't really like that. It doesn't match up with my personality at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just based off those two, like coming into pickleball and everyone I meet pretty much smiling, having a great time and loving the sport and welcoming, even going to pro tournaments and seeing people have extremely high character and tough situations. Not everybody, but for the most part, they do. I like that. Like, it's so conducive to who I am that, like, I naturally gravitated towards, man, I kind of want more of that. And as I started training every single day on my journey and documenting things, I saw people kind of gravitate towards that and say, like, man, I love kind of watching you. And I feel like I'm on your journey as well. And then that fuels you to keep going, right? And do more because you feel like it's not just about you.
I love that. And yes, pickleball is a very social sport. So for people listening, especially my friends who keep saying no when I ask if you want to go play, just remember it's fun. Like, the people I play with, they're part of my social circle now. It's a good time. You started talking about the pro tournaments. What's the vibe like at the tournaments? Like, if I were a spectator, because I'm thinking about, you go to basketball games, you go to football games, that's one experience, but you go to tennis matches or even like the big Waste Management Open.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Like,
Golf.
there's a hole where it's like, this is the party hole where everybody, like, you drink whatever. What's the vibe like as a player and also as a spectator at these tournaments?
Yeah, I would say that it differs depending on which tournament you go to. And really, there's three main tours. There's the PPA, there's APP, and there's this thing called MLP, which is Major League Pickleball. I'd say out of the three, Major League Pickleball seems to be the place to be when it comes to watching as a spectator. They've got a semi different format from traditional pickleball, but you're still going to see the top players. They're playing in a team oriented situation, and it's rowdy. I would actually liken that to if you go to a college football game or college basketball game. Like, it is kind of that environment. It's loud. You walk in, you're watching crazy shots. People are yelling after one shot. Like, come on, all of that stuff you're getting to see. You talk about like Waste Management Open. Golf traditionally isn't a sport where people like get too hype, especially the players. Like, they're not yelling or anything. But in pickleball, I think you'll see both. When you go to a Major League Pickleball event, you'll see the players getting like super excited, showing a ton of emotion. And you'll see fans. You'll hear the oohs and the ahs like midpoint, which is insane, right? You could even hear it on the live stream. But if you were to choose some events to go to, yeah, in my opinion, that's the place to be.
Okay, good to know. Hopefully I'll get a chance to check some out soon. Question, or it's a lot of questions for you, but like a follow-up question to that specifically. How does the team structure work compared to like the individual competitions? Could you explain a little bit more about that?
In Major League Pickleball, what they do is they are trying to make it similar to some of the other large sports entities like NBA, NFL, MLB, where you get drafted onto a team. So they take the top 50 players on the men's side, top 50 on the women's side, and that you're actually drafted into a team format. So there's 4 players on a team. It'd be 2 females and 2 males. And your team is going to play another team in pickleball. And so you would play like, women's doubles against the other team, men's doubles, and then 2 sets of mixed doubles against that team. And they have this really cool thing called a dream breaker, where if it's tied 2-2 at the end, you're actually going to play singles against each other, 4 points apiece. And so you would have a male playing a female, right? You could have like female, female, male, male, all of these combinations that you would never get, right? You wouldn't see Serena Williams and Roger Federer facing off in a championship. It's not going to happen, right?
Right.
Or WNBA stars playing NBA stars in meaningful games. Like, it's just not going to happen. In pickleball, you get that. And so that is, I think it's one of the biggest draws when it comes to Major League Pickleball. And they did a good job structuring that team format.
You think back to other pro leagues, especially like the NBA, they tried something different with the All-Star game a few weeks ago where they drafted live. NFL changes a Pro Bowl. And it's like, those are changes you're making that still don't really improve necessarily experience or like innovate on the game. But it's cool that they have the Dream Breaker, the format. You play a lot, it sounds like. Are these like competitions typically happening over a weekend?
They've got the next one happening March 23rd. I think it's start on a Thursday, and then the championship would be on that Sunday.
We talked a lot about tournaments, competition. What was your first tournament experience like? Did you go in, bright lights, big eyes? Did it take some nerves? What was it like for you?
So I went to play a tournament in Chicago, first pro tournament ever, traveled, excited, finally got a partner. I felt like, man, I got an adequate partner to go play. I want to like prove, what I could do. Signed up for all of the events because you can do singles, mixed doubles, and men's doubles. And I had a pretty good showing. I went out there. I didn't go with any nerves. It's easy, in my opinion, to not have nerves when you're kind of the underdog. Like no one's expecting anything of you. If you go there and you don't win any games, it's like, well, of course, it's your first one. Win every game, it's like, wow, I can't believe you just did that. Like, so you're in a win-win situation. So I felt pretty good. Me playing well in that first tournament was actually what allowed me to start working on the first pro contract, because there was a sponsor there that watched. Like, man, this guy could be pretty good. I'm watching him, and this year, and they're asking, how many tournaments have you played? I'm like, this is my first one. I'm like, I can't believe it's your first one. So I was on such a natural high that I feel like, as far as if pickleball was like an actual person, like, that's where the love began from the pro side. They really reeled me in when it came to that tournament. Like they dangled just enough in my face to go like, hey, don't you love me? And I just, I never stopped.
It's like one of those recruiting stories they always share, like before like the NBA draft or something. Oh, I was just in the wrong gym and found this star player. You mentioned finding the right partners. Before we get to the partners, what's your style? Like, what are some of the different styles of play, and like, how would you describe your game?
Yeah. Okay. Let's start with styles of play. So you typically have two main ones. You have what they call, for lack of better terms, they call it like a banger. Basically, you have the person that's like run and gun. They're like hitting everything hard. They're driving the ball. They're crashing the net with respect to the kitchen line. And they're trying to just cause chaos. And they don't really want a long point. They want it to be 1-2 balls, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that type of player, and I'm talking about extremes, but there's a few people on the extreme side. And then you've got the other extreme of the people that play a very slow and methodical game. It's the finesse portion of it, right? You see that crazy fast sports car that just like, it's fast, but like it looks so clean, like everything is smooth. That's kind of the finesse side of it. And those are players that go in and they may have to hit 15, 20 balls in one rally. They're okay with that. They're like taking their time to walk you down and like slowly get openings. So those are kind of the two extremes. I guess it's easy to say like I'm in the middle, but I think I lean more towards being the finesse guy. I like it to be where the opponent is thinking I'm going to use power, and then I'm not. I'm using more angles, opening up the court a little bit, being more strategic about it. I like that way. Honestly, that's kind of how I approach life on a day-to-day basis, just in a calm, methodical, super strategic way. And it works well on the court. It just keeps you balanced, in my opinion. Like you can make a case for both sides, and there's obviously times where players kind of go to different lengths to see what they can do to win a match. But more often than not, I'm playing kind of a smooth, finesse, calm, power when needed type of game.
When you think about a partner, do you find someone with the same style? Do you try and find someone like that balances you out? What's that approach like?
Yeah, usually someone that balances. So for me, it almost depends on like what tournament I'm thinking about playing and what are the needs. So if I'm playing a tournament where it's like, man, all of the top players are going to be in this tournament, I'm going to need somebody comparable, or maybe even that brings more fire than I bring. So that way I can bring some fire, but I'm pretty stable and playing finesse, and then that person can as well. If I'm playing one that maybe there's a little bit more opportunity, it's not all of like the top players there, then typically I like to have a partner that is actually more finesse than I am, just kind of like stable, right? They're like a rock. If you hit to that person, they're just going to hit it back. They're not going to do anything crazy with it. They're just going to put it back to where you can't do anything. And if they do that over and over, what I'm able to do is probe and find opportunities. That works out. That tends to work out really well. And I know what to expect, right? I can predict that this person isn't going to, just slap the ball 1,000 miles an hour. They're going to put the ball in one of these 2 or 3 locations, which gives me, great anticipation.
So what you're saying is I can work on my game either way and have a chance to be a great partner. Noted.
I think you get there. I'm super optimistic. We can help you. Whatever we need, let's go.
I've got some new paddles. I'm working it out. I'm working it out. The knees are the only truly.
You don't need those as much in pickle. No, I guess you do.
So as an aside, I play pickleball at this point like 3 or 4 times a week now. I started playing in October, got hurt, started playing again like the last week of December, and then since January, 3-4 times a week. I can't imagine playing basketball that many times a week and not being just like
right
using a walker. Again, 2025, 2026, whatever. We'll hammer out the details offline. How has the game changed since you started? Like even starting casually or as you've played more pro tournaments, as more people have come to the game, how has it like evolved?
That one's pretty simple to answer. The game has gotten faster. Hands battles at the net, the pace at which players hit the ball, the amount of spin they can put on a ball. So the game's gotten faster because the athletes have gotten better, but also the technology has gotten better. The quality of a paddle now is completely different than the quality of paddle when I started. And that was only 4 years ago. 10 years ago, like some of my friends have been playing, the technology is insane. And I anticipate that in the next 2-3 years, the technology is going to keep growing and the athletes are going to get better as well. As with every sport, it tends to happen that way. Knowing that, I kind of practice on the things that I feel like are going to be important down the line, which are the hand speed or the ability to put a bunch of spin on the ball with pace. It's only going to get faster and harder at the highest level. Now, if you're playing casually, amateur friends every single time, you're going to be okay. There's going to be some majority of the people that play pickleball, like I'd say like 98%, when we talk about levels, so 3-0 is the lowest level, 5-0 is typically the highest amateur level, and they do it in 0.5 increments. So it's like 3.5, 4.0, 4.5, and 5.0. Majority of the, 25 million people that play pickleball are in the like 3.5 range, to 4.0. So for them, a lot of the game isn't going to be changing as much. They can pretty much do the same things. But when you get past 4.5, 5.0, those things are, I would say a lot of the people that are at the 5.0 level, so the top amateurs today, probably were able to be pros 3 years ago. Now they're more just like a top amateur, and that's how you can see how the game's progressing.
We need to talk more offline about hand speed because I get to the net or to the kitchen and I'm doing the thing where a ball comes at me real fast and I'm just like trying to avoid getting hit in the face. And who knows how I'm holding the paddle. But I think that's, I look up and it's like, it's all bad. So hand speed is something I definitely need to pick up on.
Being able to play so much table tennis at a young age, that hand speed for me comes pretty natural. Not saying that I can't get better at it, but if it wasn't as good as it is right now, if I didn't have that one piece in my game, I probably wouldn't be playing a bunch of pro events. It's just so crazy, the hand speed. And I feel like I have, some of the fastest hands in pickleball, but like if I didn't, I probably would just be playing casually still.
We've talked about your career. We've talked about like, how do you play pickleball? Now I want to kind of like talk about some of the criticisms or challenges maybe pickleball are facing. And you might not agree with them. So we can, that's totally fine. The name. Do you think the name pickleball is a barrier to like people taking it seriously?
Taking it seriously? Yes, I think I keep saying like the casual person, the casual fan, right? The person that like it's their first time hearing it or it's their third time hearing it, you're not going to take it as serious. How do I know that? From experience. I didn't take it serious for multiple years because it's just pickleball, right? But it also depends on what the masses are looking to do. I don't necessarily think they need to take it serious if all they want to do is go play and like hear that their friends are playing. That's probably like 98% of the people that typically play. If we're talking about the pro side of things, then yeah, that makes it tough for people to like turn on, like, I'm going to watch this pickleball championship. And it's like, pickleball, like, that name is kind of dumb. I don't think there's any stock in like people trying to change the name. Like it should be changed. I'd say it's too late for anything like that. Yeah, I can see it being a barrier on the pro side somewhat, but no, not even close when it comes to like amateur people playing pickleball. It's such a wild name, I guess, that it sparks interest. So it's a good thing.
I think that's an important distinction, pro versus amateur. Like there's so much about the sport, about all the companies and things that are emerging around pickleball that are like fine for amateurs. And I guess some people, like myself, think highly of themselves, like I am a pro level competitor, that we might need to change some things. Another question for you. This one's kind of weird. Do you think from the outside looking in, the path to pro pickleball, especially like a path like yours where like you made the jump pretty quickly or relatively quickly, do you think that's a barrier from certain types of people specifically thinking that it's a real sport? Like if they don't know your story and they hear that you went pro a couple of years ago, do you think they're like, how's that a real sport if someone can go pro in a couple of years?
If you think of like the high-end tennis athlete that's chasing being one of the top in the world, they're just number 200 in the world right now, which is incredibly good in tennis. Like you are really good, but you're also not one of the top 100 people, which means you're not making a great living. But from an athlete perspective, you'd probably come in pickleball and be one of the top like 15, 20 athletes. People in that vein there, I think it makes it tough for them to accept or like watch pro pickleball, because every time they see it, it's like, if you see somebody miss a ball, they're like, I can't believe he missed. Like I could go get that ball. Of course, he just turned pro. I think strictly there's a barrier there at times where I've seen it be broken. And pickleball has done a really great job of this. A lot of the tours have. They've invited top tennis players to do exhibitions with current pro players. And you can immediately see they're not even close. Like from an athletic standpoint, it's like, wow, that guy has potential. He looks like he could be pretty good. A shot selection, skill standpoint, it's like they're not there. And so I think the more people that kind of see that, because obviously they compare pickleball to tennis. They're not saying like LeBron could come in and dominate pickleball. No one's saying that. But they are saying like, again, a top 200 tennis player, he would just come in and dominate. That barrier is being broken down daily because now we have specific evidence, video evidence of, well, look, here's a guy that was top 100. He's not doing well right now. These 7, 8 things that's going to take years for him, maybe a year, a couple years to even get to that area. Like we're not even talking about be one of the top 10. We're just saying be one of the pros that are making some type of statement. They're not there. And so that's, to me, it's comforting. If I felt like they could just jump in and all of a sudden be like one of the top 20, I would be looking for a different career. It's just how much would I need to train so that I can slowly get closer to a guy that's already way better, more athletically gifted? I would feel like, man, this might be a losing effort, but I don't feel that way. I feel like time on court, learning strategy, figuring out new shots, shots that they would never use in tennis, right? Or in badminton or other sports, like you can work on those and they still have to come in and work on those shots. They don't come in and automatically have it. So it's the advantage that I think we have at this time.
It's such an interesting world, just like the space and how it's grown so quickly, especially over the last few years. And as more big names, their participation makes it become more and more news. It's been exciting, but I think if people say, oh, Brandon that guy just went pro after a couple years, they don't know like how much time you've spent being an athlete generally, understanding how to add those different shots to your game and make those transitions. So kudos to you. I don't know if I've said that, but like it's a very exciting journey you're on. You do color commentary, right? For tournaments. What's that experience like? Are you ever watching being like, I'm going to add that to my game? Or like, oh, I can never add that to my game. What's that experience like? You have to name names. I'm not being messy. This isn't that kind of podcast, but.
Yeah. Yeah, all the time.
Hmm.
I've been a big proponent in my entire life of really receiving advice and then filtering out what advice makes sense for me specifically, and then like watching other people's experience and seeing how I can like avoid certain things or like get ahead of certain things. It's no different in pickleball. Like I watch a lot of pickleball. I study it. When I'm watching players live, I get to see like, okay, he hit this shot this way. All right, that may be something I start trying to add to my game. I think pickleball is in a spot where I don't know of anyone that's ashamed to even say, like, I'm trying to work on this shot that the number one guy in the world is doing right now. They're fine with it. Whereas I think in other sports, you wouldn't typically see that as much. I'm comparing to like, basketball here. I don't know if I've heard, some players say like, yeah, I'm trying to perfect this shot that this other player that's currently in the NBA is doing right now. They don't say that, although they're probably still looking. And the commentary has been great. It's another avenue for me. I used to do host shows in college, so I did kind of a lot of media things there. Nothing super professional, but I was always able to just like create my own content. My friend and I would stay up till 3 in the morning working on things just so 16 people could see it the next morning.
Yep.
Like
Hey.
we were just so into it and wanted it to be perfect. And so being able to have that opportunity to do it now, I'm thinking, from a futuristic standpoint also, like, hey, look at NBA players. They're not going to play NBA their entire life unless you're LeBron James playing for 20 years. But like, what do? They usually commentate, right? Sports takes. So I'm looking at that as a good avenue and wanting to perfect it. I'm also listening to other commentators in pickleball and outside of pickleball to pick up things from their game as well.
Always learning, coachable, which kind of brings me to my next question. Like in the moment, how are you making adjustments? Like, do you have someone saying, hey, I don't know if that's allowed, but do you have someone on the sideline, like another teammate saying, hey, like you're holding it weird or you're getting lazy or something? How does that work?
So right now, you don't see a ton of coaches in pickleball. I think that will come. You're seeing some, but I think you'll start to see more in the next 6 to 8 months. Usually what happens is I'll just talk to my partner about it. Like, here's what we should do. Here's what I'm seeing right here. I usually have a calm demeanor on the court because I'm thinking through a bunch of different things. And so if it's not going our way, I don't hesitate to call a timeout and then say like, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Maybe we could go here instead of there. I was fortunate to be a leader in corporate America for quite some time. Also at Sonic Drive-In, that's another story for some time. Just being able to communicate with people in a way that doesn't make them feel like you're talking like down to them in the heat of the moment is so important. Like it just is so. And so I try to do that as much as possible when like a game is tight, partner misses a shot or I miss a shot, by saying like, hey, what do you think we could change? Or maybe we could look at this shot, as opposed to like, dude, what are you doing? That type of stuff. I think with a coach, coach is probably in a good spot to say, hey, this person, you shouldn't do this. They can be a little bit harder on the team, but right now, not having a coach, both players, they got to make sure they maintain like a pretty good relationship. And so I try to navigate that as much as I can.
One thing I've noticed is that, and I kind of get why, there's not a ton of people of color playing pickleball yet, right? If you think about the feeder sports, the amount of resources you need to be like a competitive tennis player, you mentioned missing Thursday through Tuesday. Like in a pre-pandemic world, you couldn't work remotely. You just had to take time off and didn't have jobs. The pool of players moving from those games into pickleball is going to be predominantly white or affluent. What do you think it'll take over the next few years to like bring more people into pickleball? More people that look like us specifically into pickleball.
Yep. I think just more courts and more access. I was talking about this with one of my friends as well, just trying to decide what needs to be done for, more people that look like us to play pickleball. There's maybe talk about like going out as an ambassador to like inner cities and like youth being able to see you play. I think those things help. But I've never been one to say like, I'm going to try to, bear all of that on my shoulders, or me and the other two African American like men, or I think it's 4 African American like people total that play on the pro side. Pickleball itself is such a sport that will make people gravitate to it to play. That if there was more access and there were more courts, I think that more people all over would play. People that look like me, people that don't look like me, just people in general would play it. I would also compare to like basketball. Like basketball is an inviting sport. If there's basketball courts everywhere, you're seeing people play basketball. It's not necessarily something like badminton courts everywhere. We can put 17 badminton courts in one inner city. I don't know if you'll still see a ton of kids playing badminton because badminton's just not that fun.
Yeah.
But we have enough data on pickleball to say, wait a minute, a whole bunch of different nationalities like pickleball, different sexes like pickleball. Like all of that data tells me that we just need more courts that are available. I've got like a social media presence, and then people get to see it from afar and like, oh, this guy's a pro and he looks like me. I think that's awesome. And I think we'll see more of it. But I also think if we just have more courts, more people are going to play.
Going back to your earlier comments where it's like very few people come to play pickleball and then walk away saying, I don't like it. Giving people more access, I think, will be really important. And I hope that happens as more courts and companies and warehouses or whatever being converted to accommodate.
Another thing that has really helped a ton that I didn't foresee, when you have these high level athletes in NFL and like NBA that look like me that are endorsing pickleball, saying that they're playing pickleball. Now you're taking it from just like a sport that is fun that people want to play, and you're putting it in a category of like, oh, this is something that's cool, that's trendy. And like that's a whole nother crowd that they probably would like pickleball, but since it's not cool and trendy, they won't do it. I think those two buckets are awesome, and I'm starting to see a lot of that now. When I first talked about pickleball, I almost felt like when somebody does yoga or they're vegan, it comes out in 30 seconds. I was doing that in pickleball a lot, and I remember telling myself like, all right, don't bring it up, because people are going to ask like, what is it? How do you play? Now people ask me all the time. I don't even have to talk about it. Just one conversation and somebody's like, oh, hey, I was playing pickleball the other day. Have you played? I'm like, yeah, And then you say you play pro and like, oh my gosh.
How often do people like, you say I play pro and they're like, let's go play one-on-one right now? Do people like challenge you like that?
No, that's funny though, because in basketball, that used to happen a ton, right? The notion was like, no, I can beat you in basketball. Like you can't beat me. In pickleball, I haven't. When I say pro pickleball, they don't say anything on that one. Yeah, I'm sure if it was a high level tennis person, they probably would. They'd be like, no, I think I could. But for the casual, the amateur, no.
That's like that survey that came out a few years ago about like Serena Williams, and like men were like, could you beat Serena Williams in tennis? And something like 15% of men said they could. And it's like, you're insane.
Yeah,
you're insane. You couldn't.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, the privilege and all. It's a whole nother subject.
I know, speaking from like my experience, again, I'm 6 feet tall. I didn't realize until very recently, like I'm taller than average for men and women in the United States. I knew I was taller than average for women. I just remember growing up, even when I was still playing basketball, like recreationally a lot, like you tell a guy, oh, I'm going to my basketball game, or like I have a basketball game, or I'm playing basketball. He's like, I bet I could beat you. And I was like, I really don't think you could. You're not even walking like in a normal way. Like
what I see a ton of is, and I did this a couple weeks back, is sometimes I'll put on exhibitions where there'll be two amateur players on one side and I'll take the other side and I'll cover the entire court. And obviously you have two people on that side. And that's usually a scenario where they feel like, yeah, we got them now. We can. No, you can't. I know you've got two people and I've got one, but this kind of gives you a good perspective on like how good a pro player is, and which is why I like doing that, because spectators get to see as well, like how is he covering that much court? How is he that fast? How is he? That's where you get to see it live. If I saw, LeBron beat a team and it was like 3-on-1 or 4-on-1, that would mean more than if he just played a college student 1-on-1. I'm like, of course he's gonna beat. But if he beat like a team of 5 and it's just him, I'd be like, how did he? That's a whole different level.
I also think pro pickleball, like the production value isn't there yet. I don't think you can truly capture like what's happening because the game does move so quickly. And I don't know like what the solution would be to like, or what the right camera angles would be to truly understand like how people are moving the ball when they're playing slowly, and like how quick you need to be when you're playing right at the kitchen. So I hope that continues to develop, because I don't know, I think that would help people get a better sense of how athletic you do need to be a pro, and like what the difference is.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they're experimenting with a bunch of different angles. Major League Pickleball is probably the closest to figuring it out. the audio component, in my opinion, is the one that would help put it over the top. Being able to hear when somebody like cracks a ball at the kitchen line and then someone else blocks it back, to hear that raw sound, you get some now, but like they've got to find a way to almost boost it if they need to be honest. If you think like NBA games where if somebody swishes it through the net, like you hear the sound right there and it just like adds to the dramatic effect. I think if they do that, you'll start to see that plus better camera angles will give you like a crazy take on like how the ball speed is. And I did have one suggestion on this exhibition I did for it was for this Major League Pickleball thing. I said they should put a radar gun somewhere, maybe in the center line. And so it'd be hard to see it on every single time, but at certain times of the place, you can see like that ball was a 40-mile-an-hour wiffle ball. Like what? How do you hit a wiffle ball 40 miles an hour?
That is crazy. But I mean, people look at it for tennis. Serena serves. I mean, I haven't watched much tennis since she retired, so that's why I keep using her name. But Serena serves. You're looking at the Rolex sign, and then right next to it, the reading from the gun, from the radar gun. So that is absolutely true. Have you ever been mic'd up for a match?
I love doing mic'd up content for my social media, just kind of like, go out and play and then being mic'd up because it's awesome. If they mic'd up all the players each time, you would hear some pretty interesting things. Not other than any other sport, though. Athletes are a different breed. There's a lot of comedy involved while you're in the heat of battle.
I think including that would add so much value. So hopefully, like you said, MLP is closest. Hopefully they get it across the finish line in the other tours and tournaments, just so there's more content out there. What do you want to achieve in pickleball? Like in the short term, long term, what is most exciting to you about the future of the sport?
Man, okay, so there's 4 things that I want to achieve. It may seem like a lot. One is to be the best pro player that I can be. I will want to get into the top 5 of pro pickleball players. It's still a long road ahead, but I am inching closer to being able to do that. 2 is I want to help grow the game like across the world. Like so travel, do clinics out there, teach people how to play, be an ambassador. I want to be able to do that side also. And then from a commentary piece, I want to be one of the voices of pickleball, pro pickleball, amateur pickleball. I want to continue to perfect that skill in the short term. I've got really good opportunity to do that with Major League Pickleball. I'm not taking it lightly by continuing to study and do research and see how I can get better at perfecting that craft there. And then the third thing I want to do is I'm working on a training course. And so I want to provide that type of training and material for anybody that wants to play pickleball, that wants to get better, but doesn't really know the path to do that because there's so much information out there. So it's like, hey, what's the simplest way that I can get better incrementally over like a 10-week period or a 3-month period? I'm working on putting that together so that I can put my stamp on pickleball to say like, hey, this person got better because of something that I produced.
Sign me up. Sign me up. Even just practicing at one of the community centers I play at, there's 2 courts. There are only 6 people. So me and one of the other people were just like practicing serves. And it's like, that's all you need to do. There's so many things, especially if you're already an athlete, that like it's repetition, it's drills, it's not necessarily playing all the time. I don't know what all of those pieces are yet for pickleball. So like I said, sign me up.
The path of least resistance plus strategy. So if I told you, you could serve 1,000 different ways, but if I told you like, hey, if you serve and you step through into the kitchen, you're going to get more power. Like that's something anybody can do regardless of how they hold a paddle. And that's how my training is going to be kind of set. Like that's the foundation of it, is like, regardless of how you play, these things will help you out.
If you need a model to demonstrate both the good and the bad way to do things, I, at this point, can probably do both very well. At least the bad part, the wrong part. So keep me posted. We're close geographically. We can work it out. Brandon, you have been so gracious with your time. We had some technology issues on both sides. I appreciate your patience and trying to work through them. Where can people find you on the internet?
Best way to find me is on Instagram. It's really simple. You just type in my full name, Brandon Nsekpong. I'm posting some really good content about how I'm practicing on a day-to-day basis. You'll see some commentary there, and you'll see free training tips. I've got at least 20, 30 free training tips that are there. So follow if you want to up your game.
Love it. Love it. Everybody, that's it. If you're listening and we're friends, hopefully that's all my friends. Next time I invite you to play pickleball, let's go. I have extra paddles now. I've fallen into that trap of buying multiple, plenty of pickleballs. And if you're sad at the end, whatever, we can go get drinks. Everybody else, if your friends ask you to go play pickleball, go with them. If you're in a town where there's a tour, go check out Brandon. And then maybe in a couple years, me and Brandon tearing it up. We'll see.
It up.
Anything could happen. Everybody, thanks so much for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks.